Happy holidays, everyone. I'm Gio, and welcome back to Carvalho Creations, where I show you how to make awesome props and projects of your own. Now, to follow along with our Nightmare Before Christmas theme we got going on this year, in today's video, I'm going to be showing you how to make a giant-sized posable Jack Skellington to hook up your holiday decor. Now, we're going to be using super inexpensive material for this. This is all PVC pipe for the actual structure of the character, and then we're going to be using some monster mud techniques for the face and the hands. So this is going to be a really fully loaded tutorial. So why don't we get nice and comfortable? Because we're about to go wild. All right, what's happening, everyone? So today we're making a giant-sized Jack Skellington to go on my roof. So I want to go over the material list so you guys know what you're going to need to get this guy going. So first and foremost, we're going to be needing some 1/2-inch PVC pipe and then an array of couplers so you can attach everything together. You're going to be needing some 16-gauge wire, and the idea behind today's project is I want them to make them posable. So at the joints, I'm going to be using the wire and tape everything in place and glue it in place so I can bend the arms and elbows and all that stuff so I can position him to whatever position I want. Also, you're going to be needing some pool noodles. We're obviously going to be needing some air dry foam clay to do our sculpt today, and great stuff. And then I'm going to be using various different materials, red and white, for his costume today because we're going for the traditional Santa Claus version of Jack Skellington. We're going to be doing some hands, the way I showed you in our pinhead video. So if you guys haven't seen that video, definitely go check it out. But when you're done with this one, of course. And then to create the actual shape of his head, I'm going to be using some upholstery foam cut into shape. And then we're going to be needing monster mud to coat around it. So a little bit of scrap fabric and monster mud for this project as well. But super excited about this one. I've been wanting to do Jack for a long time. So now I get the opportunity. So why don't we go ahead and go wild? All right, to start off our build today, I'm going to be making the small cut for my Jack head, and I'm using this upholstery foam here. This is like a couch cushion or whatever, and I'm going to go ahead and repurpose this to create that core shape that I need. And then we're going to be adding some spray foam to this to fill out that space so it's not just flat on either side and we round it out. Right here, I'm just using a razor blade. This one's, anything when you're working with foam at all, it tends to dull your blades super quickly. I need to invest in one of them hot knives to make this process a lot easier because I do this all the time. But so right here, I'm just carving a little relief for that PVC pipe in the middle, and then I'm just adding my about 2 to 3 layers of spray foam over this because it's going to expand, and I want that nice natural round shape for Jack's head. Once that dries for about an hour and a half, I went ahead and did another layer on the other side. And then I'm taking a sharp blade here and starting to refine my shape a little bit. Now, all I'm worried about in this step is just contouring those edges so they blend seamlessly into the foam itself. And then once I get this shaped to where I'm happy with it, I'll go ahead and switch to a marker here and I'm gonna start cutting out some of the features in the face, just what I want to carve away before I actually do my first layer of monster mud. So like I said, I'm using my marker here and just carving in where I want the mouth to go and the eyes as well. Just so I have the positioning right, and then I can cut my holes in the foam first. So I already have a shape for me when I go to do the sculpture later on. When you're doing this step, take your time with it. Really try to fill out the features and get everything laid into place. A lot of times when people are new at sculpting or prop making at all, they tend to go right to detail instead of getting the forms down first. So it always seems a little off from their finished pieces, and that's just because they're not taking the time to cut in the forms and shapes first to get that overall look set in motion, all the foundation set for you before you actually go to the detail. So now that that's all carved up, I'm going to start putting on my first layer of monster mud, and I like to wipe just monster mud over the entire structure before I start to put my material on. That way it sticks, because when you're trying to get inside the contours of the eyes like that, if it's dry, it's going to stick to your fingers more than the actual shape. So it's a really good step to do before you actually start to lay on your monster mud. Again, take your time with this process. You want to completely seal that head, that foam all the way through. That way none of that moisture seeps in and starts to rot out, the core of your piece. For the sculpture, I'm just taking my foam here, and you saw me spritz this little character a little bit with water. And the reason I do that is because when you're using with the foam clay, I realize that when you go to apply it to the monster mud, if it's too dry, it'll just completely fall off and won't stick for you. So I just like to spritz the surface a little bit if it's dry, just so that foam clay really adheres to the monster mud itself. And here I'm just going over the features, starting to work in some of the detail here. The entire front part of the head is going to be covered with this foam. I like the way it blends in. It has that smooth surface in the front. I'm going to have a hat on the top, and then we're going to have a beard on him at the end as well. So I just wanted to go ahead and get this basis for the sculpt going first. And right here, I'm just working in the nose and the placement of the nose, starting to move around a little bit of the shape. And then for the teeth here, I'm just taking bits of this foam. Now, I just stuck it on there, but there's a high possibility that it's not going to adhere to that foam all the way in there, and they could fall off. And I had one of them do that. So what I ended up doing was just, once everything was dry, I would pull at the teeth, and if they were loose, I would take them off and then hot glue them in place instead. And Jack's got some funky teeth right here, so I wanted to make sure that looked as close to him as I possibly could. Yeah. Now for the hands, I was gonna do these like I did the pinhead, where I just put them in a latex glove, but I realized really quick that I wanted these hands to be pretty large. So instead, I'm just cutting out the length of the fingers that I wanted, and then I'm gonna go ahead and use a bit of duct tape here once I have it all placed in the position I want, and just go over the wire, flip them around, and wrap that duct tape. And that gives me a cool little skeletal hand that I can work with. And now I wanted to go ahead and cut out the foam I was going to use for the actual hands. And I thought this was the best way to do this, because I want that articulation in the fingers. I'm cutting out the sections in the knuckles where I want it to bend. So I'll be just taking a sharp blade for this as well, cutting through this foam here, and then cutting out the relief sections for the knuckles. That way I have bare wire exposed, and it'll give me that articulation that I'm looking for. And to attach all this hand to the wire, I'm just going to be using hot glue. Put a little nice amount of hot glue down there on the palm of the hand, pressed it in place and held it, and then I just glued each one section by section and let them cool, so they had a pretty strong bond. Now, I'm not worried about the hot glue holding them on the wire. That would never work, but I'm going to go ahead and wrap this hand with monster mud, and once that monster mud cures, it's not going anywhere. This is probably the most tedious part of the entire build, is just wrapping these fingers, because I needed to do it in small sections, so I had to cut very thin strips of material, dip that in the monster mud, and then wrap each knuckle. That way I continuously have that articulation I'm looking for with the fingers. All right, everyone, so our sculpture's done. I've let it sit for about 24 hours, so it's nice and dry. So now I'm gonna go over the entire sculpture with another layer of monster mud, so we can hard coat this and make it weather resistant before I get to the actual painting. Now, a couple things I wanted to show you before we go on to the next step, and when I'm talking about the body here. Now, the body I'm creating for Jack is actually gonna be something that's gonna be posable. So I want him to sit. So he's not gonna be a standing prop. Otherwise I would need something for the structure to make sure he stands up and can hold the weight. But for this one, I'm just gonna have him sitting on my roof. So I'm gonna go ahead and do a posable joint for him. So in order to get that accomplished, what I'm gonna be using is just my 1/2-inch PVC pipe. And hopefully you guys can see this. What I went ahead and did is drilled a hole at either end of these two pieces, a 1/4-inch hole. And then I ran my 16 gauge wire through there about 3 or 4 times, and then twisted this on itself to create a stronger joint that I can now pose, and I can get those PVCs to stay in a certain position I want. Now, this one's a little bit loose because I haven't taped it down. I taped over the hole on this side, so hopefully you can see that right there, just to make sure that stays in place. But once I get all these put together, and I might do a few more winds of that wire just to make sure it's really strong to hold that weight. But that's how I'm gonna be doing the joints for our Jack Skellington. And the body's just gonna be PVC. We'll use a little bit of chicken wire, and I didn't mention chicken wire in the actual material list, so we're gonna need chicken wire for this just to create his chest. And then we're gonna be using some upholstery foam to go ahead and wrap around the chicken wire before I skin it with material. Now, I'm just gonna be using material for this. I'm not gonna actually do monster mud on the body itself because I want it to remain as lightweight as possible. Now, if you're getting a lot of rain in your area, this will deteriorate over the season, or it'll more than likely last a 1 season, but you'll probably have to fix it up after that if you're getting a lot of rain. If not, it's gonna be really easy to store because you can bend these arms and legs up and store them away in your garage. And this is what I was kind of thinking of, because I wanted this guy to be nice and big like Jack Skellington is, but I don't want to deal with the storage of them as well. So I'm trying to get a lot of things done here all at the same time. And as far as the hands, now our hands are also dry here. And because I used the wire and cut the foam the way I did, now I can get a little bit of articulation in the fingers, and I can bend things around and just make it feel more realistic for his pose. So this thing is almost done. What I'm going to end up doing with this hand is spray painting it the color I need it, and then sealing it like I normally do with my sculptures. But also in the joints where the wire is still visible, I'm just going to take a little bit of black electrical tape to create those spaces that you see in Jack's fingers. But these are gonna be perfect. They're right size to his face. It's gonna look really good when it's done. So why don't we go ahead and get to that next step. All right, so now I'm gonna do the second layer of monster mud, and now that this foam is all the way dry, I'm just gonna paint another layer of monster mud on here just to make sure that I seal all that foam. Just another added layer of protection so your prop will last a lot longer. Now, I'm gonna be doing monster mud on the face of the hands like I've shown you here, but the body is just gonna be PVC pipe, and then I'm going to use like pool noodle and upholstery foam just to fill them up a little bit. So the body will probably deteriorate over time, but the face and the hand is going to last you, so it's going to be good. So to start off with my body, I'm using just a little 3/4 inch piece of plywood, and I'm making like an oval shape, and this is going to be the base of my character, so he has something to sit on, and I have something I can attach my PVC to. So I'm taking my PVC, and I measured it at about 26 inches because I had to recut this piece for the actual torso, and the arms I made them at 21 inches per section. So for the upper arm it was 21 inches and the lower arm 21 inches, and I did the same thing for the legs because I wanted them to be equally as long because Jack is such a lanky character. So now I'm taking my piece of PVC for the torso, and I'm just using my heat gun to bend it up so I have a little elbow to screw down to the wood base. And the placement of this torso is going to be a little further back because I want it to be act as the spine for Jack. And I'm just taking a couple screws here and screwing it down, and then I'll take some spray foam and just fill around there just so that joint is extra strong and it's not going to move anywhere. And then I'm using a little bit of PVC pipe glue and then gluing my T-shape in so I have something to connect the head to, and then I have these little shoulder areas, and that shoulder strip is only 7 inches on either end, so it ended up working perfectly. And now I'm taking my chicken wire, just a very small amount of chicken wire. I'm going to go ahead and staple this to the base of that wood base there, just so I can hold it in place, and then I'm going to wrap the chicken wire just around the PVC. I'm not using any screws or anything to hold it in place, just wrap it around itself, and then I'll start to form in that waist. Because he's a skeleton, I want it super thin in his waist, just a little bit of shape to him, nothing too difficult. And now I'm going to be taking my spray adhesive, I'm going to spray over my upholstery foam as well as the chicken wire itself, so it has a nice adhesion once I put this upholstery foam over that chicken wire. And I pre-measured it to make sure I had enough to fit all around. And what I'm doing here is just making sure one side is tight all the way before I wrap the other one and overlap it on itself, so it looks like one solid piece. Now I'm taking my 1/4 inch drill bit here and just drilling through the PVC pipe so I have something to attach my wire to. Now be very careful, like you saw in this shot here. that drill grabbed that material and spun it up on itself. So you want to make sure that's pulled away as much as possible so you don't have to worry about that. So as I'm winding this wire through here, I'm leaving about a 3-inch gap in between the actual pipe itself. And the reason I'm doing that is because once I have this wound in about 3 or 4 times and it's strong enough, I twist that pipe around itself. I didn't show it there, but when you do that, it shortens that distance in between that shoulder and arm. So make sure you leave yourself about 3 inches in between. And here I thought it'd be easier just to go ahead and drill my hole directly into the wood and then feed the wire through in the same way I did in the other shots. Now this structure obviously is not going to be strong enough to hold itself up, but I was going to have my character sitting and then I'll have wires and things holding his arms out. So for me, this is all I needed as far as his movement. And here for the feet, I measured those sections of PVC 5 inches longer. So it's about 26 inches for the bottom part of the legs as well. And that's so I can take about 5 inches off the base there and bend it up for my foot so I have something to slide my pool noodle over. So now that I have my body constructed, I'm just going to go ahead and take my pool noodle. I'm just measuring them by eye there, just slicing them down the middle to work them over that PVC. And I'm making sure to leave a space in between the arms there so that joint will bend freely without anything holding it and restricting it. And this is all I use for the padding for his arms and legs too. It was a perfect thickness for his body. So to start off with my actual costume here, all I'm doing is layering fabric over the top with some spray adhesive, and then in order to keep it really tight on itself, I'll use a bead of hot glue along the seams just to hold everything really tight. But I wanted to use the spray adhesive so that material sticks to the body and it keeps Jack's real thin form. And again, I'm using a little bit of hot glue along that seam just to make sure that it's really stuck together really well and it holds. Same thing with the arms. I cut thin strips and then stuck it down with that spray adhesive. And what I do is I fold one side of the material up underneath the back of the arm where it's not going to be seen, and then I roll the other side over to cover that seam and then use my hot glue.
Merry Christmas, baby.
Just take your time with this step. That way it's nice and tight. You get as many of those wrinkles out as possible. So it just really sells the character at the end. And you guys will see how this comes out. It's so cool.
Merry Christmas, honey. Yeah. The snowman's dusting off his hat, putting on the show for everybody, to give them a smile that lasts another year. There's something that happens when sleigh bells are ringing when December.
So now to get to the painting, I'm just going to go ahead and use a base color of white. Not worried about too much shading in Jack. He's just a skull, and I want him to be really high contrast. So I'm just going to be spray painting this white and then using my airbrush to fill in the eye sockets and the mouth with black and the nose there, just to give that high contrast. And then the only color I'm going to be actually adding is for the teeth. We're going to give him some of those nasty yellow teeth that you see in the movie. And then I'll be hand painting a little bit of black into the actual skeletal mouth to create the ridges that you see. But this was a really easy paint job. If you guys are, worried about the paint part, that process of it, or it's a little bit intimidating for you, this is a great character to start with because it's really so simple. If there's any other Nightmare Before Christmas characters you'd like to see me create, let me know which ones you want to see down in the comment section below. Now to finish off the hands, like I said earlier, I'm just taking a little bit of electrical tape and taping over those knuckles. I thought this was the perfect way to show that contrast in the fingers as well, to sell the character hands, but also it worked perfectly to cover up that wire. All right, everyone, so now you can see I have Jack sitting in my sleigh here. Just to have him pose, I wanted to see what he looked like kind of put together with the head on the body here, and he's already looking so awesome. So now we're going to start with the finishing touches because we're pretty much done with the actual build and construction of the body. And the head's looking good. I got the hands here. I'm going to attach the hands the same way I've done all the joints. So just a little bit of 16 gauge wire. I'm going to twist it together to hold it in place. And then I'll be adding the trim over the sleeves. Now, if you notice in the last couple clips, I didn't really go all the way down the sleeve with the red material. It's okay. I'm going to be wrapping that trim around his wrists and his neck. We're going to do a little bit of belt. I think I'm going to use some craft foam for the actual black belt that goes around his waist. So I can also paint that belt buckle with some acrylic paints. And then we're going to do the hat. And the hat, the way I'm going to do that, I'm just going to use actually an old traffic cone and skin that so I can get the proper cone shape. I'll probably widen it a little bit at the base because Jack's head here is pretty big. But that's going to be pretty much it. So let's get to the detailed part. This is the fun part for me, watching it all come together. So let's go ahead and do that. But before we do, I wanted to show you guys one thing here. I can see this sculpture here. A couple years ago, I did a jingle, a little elf for you guys. And I think I'll do another one this year. But this clay that I'm using now is a concrete clay. It's a recipe that I actually found online. And I'm going to be doing a video in the near future talking about the recipe to actually make the clay, and then also using it and sculpting with it as well in that video. So if you guys are excited about that, let me know down in the comment section below. But let's get back to finishing Jack. So I'm going ahead and doing the finishing touches here. I'm just going to be attaching the hands in the same way I did for the rest of the body, and then working on some of the trim pieces here and the boots. And I just used black material for the boots, glued it into place. This is a super cool and fun build to do. I hope you guys try this one out at home. I had a blast doing this and it came out so awesome. And Christmas is my favorite time of year. It's beginning to look like all my wishes are coming true. That's why I cheer. I've been busy decking the halls. I've been kind to big and small. And now it's time to have a merry holiday. You know, getting to these last pieces and the final stage of putting everything together and watching them come to life is by far my favorite part of the entire process in any project that I do. But watching Jack come to life, especially because it's such a nostalgic thing for me, this has been such an awesome build. But I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. This is about the end of it today. Until next time, happy holidays. Thank you guys so much for sticking with me to the end of our video today, and I hope you enjoyed our giant-sized Jack Skellington tutorial. As always, if there's a character or creature you'd like to see me recreate in the future, or maybe you want to see a specific Christmas character that I can bring to life for you, please write me down in the comment section below and let me know what you want to see. I'm always game for new props and projects. We're going to be bringing out a lot more videos coming this holiday season as well into the new year, so I want you guys to stick with me. Make sure you're subscribed down below and you hit those notification bells so you never miss a video. But until next time, keep building things, stay creative, don't forget to go wild. I'm Gio from Carvalho Creations, and I'll see you next time. It's a Christmas. Dance because it's Christmas, baby. Yes.